Hi, Patrick here. Have Cheetah Will View. Welcome to Dollar Theater. For this episode of Dollar Theater, we will be covering the third and the last season of Land of the Lost. The Land of the Lost was a show that was produced by Sid and Marty Krofft. It ran for 3 seasons. The third season started on September 11th, 1976. But things had changed for the show between the end of the second season and the beginning of the third season. One was that Spencer Milligan, who played Rick, he had gone to bat for the kids and himself, trying to, they were making a lot of money. Sid and Marty Krofft and the network were making a lot of money off their likeness, selling toys and lunch pail boxes and stuff like that. And he wanted the kids to get in some of the action as well as himself. Unfortunately, the studio and Sid and Marty Krofft didn't see it quite the same way, and so Spencer quit the show. He quit the show. Yeah, so they needed to draft a new actor to come in, and they got one. They got Ron Harper, who had just come off a failed CBS show called Planet of the Apes, which only ran 14 episodes. That's right, Land of the Lost actually outlasted Planet of the Apes. Think about that for a minute. So what they wanted to do, they had to figure out a way to bring Uncle Jack into the show, and so they did. And in doing so, in the first season the first episode of the third season, Aftershock, it shows that Rick was in a pylon and had opened a temporal pathway, and this allowed him to go home. But as we saw in the first season, that whenever one leaves, one enters. And so as Rick actually went home, we see Uncle Jack, who had been looking for them, he had fallen into the same river. So without Rick finding his way home, Jack would have died. But instead, he was able to come in and through the Land of the Lost and find Will and Holly. Um, we do see one thing right off the bat too. Last season, we saw what they called the Builder, and the Builder was basically supposed to be the overseer of the land, and he will go around during a episode. He had his premiere episode. Though it's the only time he ever appeared in the show, but what he did was he advanced Chaka, one of the main characters. He advanced his intellect. Um, he had made him from a prehistoric, from prehistoric to he was able to now speak flawless English. He advanced his intellect enough to where he could communicate on the level as with the marshals. So that was a real big plot moving forward. And then it was about time, trying to watch those guys try to talk each other with their, trying to guess the words. It was cute for a while, but I could definitely see why they advanced it, and it did help the show. Not so much the third. I mean, the third season, it didn't have the strong writing and the themes as it did for the first 2 episodes. But we did see some pretty interesting guest stars, and that started with Survival Kit. And this is something I had mentioned before in the last episode. It's like, what happens if one of these guys got sick? Not hurt, but sick. And so what happens? Well, when Jack comes, he immediately decides he's going to, after Holly gets sick, he decides that he needs to go back to where the marshals originally came into to find the medical kit. So, but unfortunately for them, there's a new gentleman in the land, and that's Malik, who's played by Richard Kiel, and the marshals have to outmaneuver him to get the medicine. We also see, this is also really interesting too, in the second episode, which is the Survival Kit, is that we now see that Enoch his behavior toward the marshals has now shifted, starting to shift from being a helper and a friend to now willing to give them up for the Slee Stack. He is in a sense devolving. He is not. He's not. He's starting to believe in their gods and not quite as intellectual as he once was. And we're starting to see that, including he was going to give up the marshals here, because Malik has passed himself as a god because he's able to stop the water from flowing. He accidentally discovered the handle which would block the water, and that in doing so, that causes where the Slee Stack live, it causes water to rise in their chambers, and that would kill their offspring. So they're all doing whatever Malik says. They see him as a god, and that includes, like I said, Enoch, which the first two seasons that would have never happened. Uh, we see there's a lot of like gimmicky episodes on this one. We see Will he gets turned invisible. They meet the Medusa, who tries to hold on to Holly. Let's see. We see different animals come in, including a fire-breathing Dromedon. I guess it's the type of dinosaur. Again, it's fire-breathing, so it's sort of gone off the science fiction-y type of deal, more into the fantasy. So you could definitely see the writing on the third season is not nearly as strong. Jack is okay, but you really have a feeling that, they must have offered him a little bit of money to come in there and pinch hit. And it sort of shows. He doesn't really there's not really, the acting's not as good as the first two seasons. Of course, by now, Wesley Urer had now a full-blown teen star, and through Days of Our Lives. And so the series kept going. The series kept going until the last episode, and the marshals are trying to convince Lone Wolf and a cavalry officer that they have to work together in order for them to get home. That was the last episode of the season, and why it was not written as a finale, because they thought they would keep going. Whereas in fact, the marshals did get home. And like I mentioned in the first part of here, they did get home. It was just the people that were there following them. There was sort of like a different alternative version of them, and so their Rick got to go home twice. We don't know what would have happened. We don't know what would have happened moving forward, as far as that goes. What would happen for a fourth season? We never did find out as the series ended. The 70s, though, were definitely a heyday of live action. And like I said, there's some other things other than some of the writers and the directors on here, and the more guest stars that came on here. The show was interesting in the fact there was a lot of talent behind the scenes, and that included Michael Westmore, who did a lot of the special effects. Now, Michael Westmore is massively famous for his work on all the Star Trek episodes. Again, are we surprised by that? No, not really. Like I said before, this has a tremendous. The show has been influenced tremendously by Star Trek, and a lot of how it handles the different civilizations they meet, and they never go to war with anybody. They always try to work it out. They always try for a peaceful solution when they can get it, and they're very creative with what they don't have. And that was one of the things too about in the first season is the fact, or the second season we saw that too, and I forgot to mention this, but they had a massive earthquake, and that caused the high bluff to be destroyed. So the marshals had to relocate to another building, and this building was a lot less defensible than it used to be. Now the Sleestak could come over and menace them pretty much at will. Some of the interesting facts here. Bill Laimbeer, the basketball player, he actually played a Sleestak for 4 episodes. He was on here for 4 episodes, and that was pretty interesting too. A lot of the actors, they shifted, playing Sleestak. John Locke played the Sleestak leader, but he also just played a regular Sleestak. Yes. As far as the actors themselves, Spencer Milligan, he passed away in March 2024, and Ron Harper, he passed away in April of 2024. So the two main Marshall men had passed away. Um, as far as the actors go, Wesley Ure went on to do, the Days of Our Lives, but a lot of the actors, including Spencer Milligan, they saw their career sort of stall out after The Land of the Lost ended. They still did some acting, but it got less and less. And so Wesley, he went ahead and he ended up having an affair with Richard Chamberlain, and then he ended up doing a lot of different creative businesses. He also did a lot of community theater. A lot of he went on tour. He created businesses for cruise ships. He's done very, very well for himself. Kathy Coleman got married twice to two not very nice people. She had a tough life, and she too pretty much retired acting after the show ended. She only did a couple other things other than that. Um, Wesley and Kathy both got invited to appear in the 2009 movie version of Land of the Lost, which is always a gimmick they do whenever time they reboot a property like this. But their roles in the movie was left on the cutting floor, and quite honestly, probably the better for it too. That movie was the movie version of Land of the Lost was some dog shit. I'm just laying it out there. Was not received very well, and lost a ton of money. The series itself, it got remade in 1991, and it did star Timothy Bottoms, who was a big name. Timothy Bottoms was not a known name, unknown. Timothy Bottoms, when he did the show, he was a very well known and respected actor. Still is. I mean, he's yeah. But it was a little surprising to see that he had actually done the remake of The Land of the Lost in 1991. But there you go. Um, I had a lot of fun with it. I do wish that the third season had retained its strength. Um, and I thought it was sort of disappointing to see them turn Enoch. I thought that was I thought that was a little disappointing because he had been an ally throughout pretty much the first 2 seasons, and then he became sort of much antagonistic toward the third. And the thing about it is, in the remake of the series, they kept that. They had him as the antagonist in the remake, which was really a disservice to the character because he helped the Marshalls out so much in the first version of the show. As far as the series, as far as the set goes, there's 2 sets that got released. I got the version got released by Universal Studios, who put out the show, and it's bare bones minimum, bare bones. I mean, there's nothing here as far as special features. The one you want to get if you get this is not the one from Universal. You want to get the one that Shout Factory put out. Shout Factory put out a massive set, including a lot of documentaries and including episode commentaries and in-depth interviews with the cast. I'm not sure if Spencer Milligan or Ron Harper were in there, but I definitely know that Kathy Coleman and Wesley Ure were definitely interviewed. Yeah, that's That's what I would recommend if you want to go back to revisit this. This is nice to get. You can probably get this pretty darn cheap. You can probably get this pretty darn cheap. Universal. The Shout Factory one might cost you a couple of dollars, but I definitely would say it would be worth it. I definitely would say it would be worth it. Um, all right. Well, that is it for as far as the Land of the Lost go. I hope you enjoyed this retrospective, and I had fun bringing it to you. And I do not know what we're doing next week. I do not know. I have an idea. I have an idea, and it was sort of a off the way request. And I will see if I have this movie, and if I do, we will be talking about. Well, we'll be talking about it when we get there. All right. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting the sub button. Drop a comment down on Land of the Lost. Love to hear your thoughts on it. It's going to be interesting to see how it rolls out, how you guys respond to the series. And again, if this something you'd like to see me try to do again, let me know. I got a couple other live action 70s shows too. And if you want me to cover that, I can do that as well. I got a couple, not too many, but I got a couple, and we could do that as well. But it's up to you. If I get some good feedback, I'll definitely do that. But if not, well, we'll just stay back. We'll just stay on movies, because Lord knows we have enough of those dollar theater movies. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you, if not in the Land of the Lost. Peace. It should have had cheetahs on there.